Welcome, everyone, to Meet the Mission, where we pull back the curtain on cutting edge tech, talent, and tactics that power Parsons' impact across defense and infrastructure. Today's episode is taking us into the wild world of electronic warfare, where signals fly, threats evolve by the second, and having the right tools can make or break the mission. And at the center of the edge, a powerhouse capability called TReX. TReX is Parsons' high fidelity signal emulator that's changing the game in how we test, train, and plan for spectrum defense environments and irregular warfare scenarios. First up is Daniel O, Senior Program Director at Parsons and one of the key architects driving innovation in our synthetic environments portfolio. He's going to walk us through the technical heartbeat of TReX and why it's a game changer. Joining him is Scott Asack, Senior Director of Business Development, who also brings a unique lens as a retired Navy SEAL captain and Senior Program Director. Scott's here to connect the dots between mission, tech, and the operator, giving us the boots on the ground perspective of why this tech matters. So whether you're a defense tech nerd, a national security strategist, or just curious about how digital environments are reshaping modern warfare, you're in for a treat. So let's get into it. If I could have you guys just do a very brief introduction of yourselves, and then also tell us where you're located. One of the things that we want to make sure that we are, shaping this story around is where all of the possible opportunities are in this landscape. So just quick intro and location.
Sure, not a problem. I'll start us off. My name is Daniel Lowe. Like Candace said, I'm the Senior Program Director for a group called Synthetic Environments, and we, hyper focus on how we support our military and intelligence community partners in how we evolve the electronic attack capabilities and how we train and support our warfighters.
Awesome. Welcome, Daniel. All right, Scott, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Candace. Scott Asack. Spent 26 years in the Navy as a SEAL officer and retired in December 2020 and joined Black Horse Solutions, which was then acquired by Parsons in the summer of 21. Coming up on my 4-year anniversary this summer with Parsons. And I've been focused on growth of our TReX as well as DICE and other RF synthetic emulator, and really, using my operational experience, training experience, and knowing the customer needs, been helping the company navigate how to best adapt the technology and get to the right customers with the right capability.
Awesome. And did you say location? I don't know if I missed that one.
Oh, no, I missed that one. Actually,
Okay.
we're both based out of the Northern Virginia, the DC metropolitan area, right next to our nation's capital. So we're right near all of our main customers, but we do support our partners and the government personnel all around the country as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, well, I want to take a moment. This is my favorite part of the episode because, as we start to get into the tech, I want people to really get to know you guys and understand a little bit more about you. So I have some fun icebreakers. And the first one goes to Daniel. If you had to explain TReX to a 10-year-old using only movie references, how would you describe it?
So I think one geeky one that comes to mind is Transformers, because there's more than meets the eye, and TReX specifically, there's characteristics about it where it's more than what it looks like on the surface, and we're able to transform into different things to in the radio frequency or RF domain. So I think that might be a good analogy to give to kids to better understand our capability.
And I love that because who's not going to want to work in an environment that, is transformer like and be a part of that cutting edge technology. So that's really cool. All right. Next up, Scott, if you could have dinner with one historical figure in the world of science, tech, or warfare, who would it be and why?
So not a well-known name because he was very kind of reclusive, didn't want to be known. But yeah, the figure that I've been fascinated with since I've been involved in this electromagnetic spectrum world is Alfred Loomis. There's a great book that I read last summer called Tuxedo Park. That was one of my bosses here turned me on to. And just a fascinating scientific mind. He was a Wall Street tycoon in the roaring 20s. He was one of the few that saw the market was going to crash and pulled out unscathed before the crash in the 1929, and just had a brilliant scientific mind, very patriotic, and really led the push to develop radar and to get it down to a small enough form factor to put it on aircraft so that the Brits could fly radar protected aircraft over the channel before they had it just on the ground and have a shorter warning when the bombings would come from the Nazis. But yeah, fascinating guy, Alfred Loomis. He had a leading lab up at his kind of second home up in Tuxedo Park, north of Manhattan, where Albert Einstein, Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, all the great minds of the time came to use his equipment because he had the best of the best. He did a lot of work with ultrasound. He's the guy that invented LORAN for navigation along the coast. And yeah, little known name. I only know of a private school that was named the Loomis School after him, but otherwise he didn't want his name put in anything. Fascinating guy.
So the recommended read, and I'll find it. We'll drop it in the comments for folks so that you guys have the link to it. But Tuxedo Park, is that autobiographical, biographical?
No, it's written by Janet Conant. It came out in 2002. It's on Amazon Books.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, we'll cue that up for you guys so that you can see that and possibly read and learn about all this fascinating tech. All right. So Daniel, what's the most unexpected or funny thing you've ever seen happen during a live electronic warfare test or training scenario? And this is actually both of you guys, but we'll start with Daniel.
Sure. Scott and I have, crisscrossed around the country in interesting places. And it's funny how, when we travel, I think people assume that it's kind of glitz and glamour, but there are a lot of cases where we end up at a very dry, hot desert in July. And we're supporting our military partners in the middle of a desert during the hottest part of the day. And one interesting spot that I was in a few years ago was when we were in an area where there were very limited walking path because of the fact that it was the field was previously used as an ordnance test ground. So there were unexploded ordnance, and basically the safety trainer said, if you see a shiny object, don't pick it up. Absolutely don't step on it. And I may have actually been talking to Scott on the phone, and as I was walking with a group of folks, and all I heard right before stepping on a very shiny object was, "Oh my God, like stop!" And I stepped right on a very very shiny metal object. Fortunately, it was an old piece of metal that wasn't a bomb, so that was an interesting spot to be in. And I had been preaching to all of our junior engineers and even a couple of our interns who came with us on the trip to say you gotta watch out for all of these safety guidelines and make sure that you're aware of your surroundings. So I was definitely not good at doing what I preached. So that was one interesting spot that I was in.
That sounds super scary, and thank goodness, because I don't think Scott would have been able, if he was on the phone at that time, that would have been a crazy experience, obviously for you, but also Scott would never forget that moment. So all right, what about you, Scott? What do you have?
Yeah, my funny one was we're out at Fort Huachuca. It was a big end of an exercise where we had TReX transmitting, and then we had a distinguished visitor DV day. So we set up our table and we bought a brand new big flat screen TV on base to display the the GUI, the graphic user interface of TReX, and so we were all ready, had everything set up, ready to corral and we saw the bus show up with all the generals and colonels and senior folks, and just as they were walking towards our tent, a big gust of wind came, the whole flat screen crashed down right on top of somebody's smartphone. So we picked up the screen and it was completely shattered, spidered, and the generals walked up and were like, should somebody buy this company a nice flat screen TV?
Right.
So yeah, we just last minute, but we improvised, and we had a good talking point. We still were able to demonstrate what we could, but yeah, you never know when a strong wind's going to change your day in a blink of an eye.
So you were able to recover and still do your demo, I'm assuming on like a laptop or some smaller screen, right, at that point?
Part of the screen you can still see, and we just kind of explained what they would be looking at.
We call that resiliency. You made it work.
And then I used my best engineering skills and took duct tape and just wrapped it around the table so it wouldn't fall again, because it was a very windy day. That's
amazing. Like I said, resiliency at its best. You guys figured it out. You pivoted. You did what you needed to do. All right. Any more? I think there was one other story that you guys wanted to share. Was there another one, Scott?
I was just thinking about, Jenny will have one more in there, but I was thinking about, we were at 29 Palms with the Marines, and we were using one of their network frequencies. It was a microwave connection between our TReX back to our command and control node, and we had it running all day, and then the big event was happening that night, and we were back at the hotel monitoring our network, and everything just dropped off, lost connections, and we found out that they had flown over a aircraft with a high-powered jammer, and it basically knocked everything offline. And so, yeah, luckily, Daniel was able to troubleshoot it from the hotel remotely, access back in, and at least troubleshoot, and knew that it wasn't our system, but it was just the network that had dropped on the Marine side.
Wow.
So versatility in the TReX and remote access was, everybody was impressed, the ability to troubleshoot that quickly.
That's amazing.
I think that was actually the last thing that I was going to do right before going to sleep. It was around 11 or 12 o'clock, and I was talking with one of our engineers on the phone to say everything looks good, and everything just died. So like blood completely drained from my brain trying to figure out what happened.
How long do you remember how long it took you to kind of narrow everything down?
It took a couple of hours. No, it took a couple of hours, and this was in California time, and time zone difference was it hits you a little bit, but I think that's one of the things that we do. We may not come with a perfect solution at times, but with folks like Scott coming from the special operations community, we learn from the best, and we have great leadership, I think, so that whenever these things happen, we're able to flex and adjust on the fly rather than just raising our hands up.
Absolutely. I think you guys are, one of the things that we stress in this space, especially in the defense and electronic warfare space, is just flexibility, resiliency, right? Trying to pivot and make sure that we are using the best and brightest minds to kind of regroup and recover. So, all right, last icebreaker, and then we'll get into the fun tech stuff. And this is what's your go-to gadget you can't live without, outside of TReX, of course? And whoever wants to answer this one, you can have it.
I can start. Obviously, I've got a stack of TRexes at home to keep everything warm, right? But I think I'm guilty of being addicted to screens. So right now I've got 4 screens in front of me, 2 mobile screens, and actually in my cabinet I've got maybe about 4 different screens. So I think I'm one of those folks that needs to put down devices and from it, and it's one of those things I'm starting to enjoy, going into remote places with no cell connections, and I can enjoy nature. But yeah, I'm definitely addicted to those things, and just like the kids these days, unfortunately.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, most of us can say we're probably guilty of the same thing. Being a technologist, there's all types of things that are helpful to our everyday lives, but also, essential to our business. And so we are very, tech addicted in this space. Awesome. All right. So, we've already kind of walked through you guys' introductions into the space, but I just want to have a little bit more understanding of, um, Daniel, can you walk us through your journey to becoming a senior program director at Parsons and what drew you to this space ultimately?
So, unlike Scott, I don't have a military background, although I did have a pretty extensive career within the DoD and IC. But with an engineering degree, working across different parts of an engineering department, and then also overlaying that with experience in business development, I think helped me get a lot of exposure into a wide variety of technologies. And I also had a pretty notable stint in commercial tech as well. And it feels very hodgepodgey and very disparate in all the different technologies and capabilities and backgrounds. But ironically enough, those all of those experiences did help me with my current job, where I'm able to help develop a technology as well as a team of engineers and work with very capable folks like Scott coming from the military with business development as the focal point. So I think that's a key kind of a factor that I mentioned to a lot of younger engineers who are looking to develop in this industry, is really focusing on, solving problems, and then not being shy, not shying away from different challenges, even if it's outside of the scope of what they're working on. Because my background is like in so many different areas, but that specific wide array of experience is helping me directly do my job right now as well. And also, I'm kind of referencing a college basketball coach where he mentioned about how, for young people, it's important to really never say no to an opportunity to learn and to work. And I think my background resonates that. It has backfired often, but at the same time, I think all in all, I think it's been very fruitful as well.
Absolutely. Another day we'll get into how it backfired. I'll leave that one alone for right now.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. And then just very quickly, what does the synthetic environments portfolio cover? And how does TReX fit with the mission set?
So the synthetic environments essentially covers our ability and technologies that are related to mimicking things in the RF, or the radio frequency domain. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but our DNA is really rooted in electronic attack capability development, or EA. And we work in hand with EW electronic attack, SIGINT technologies, and mission sets. So having TReX, which is basically a capability that enables mimicking of different things, that aligns directly with the core mission of the department and how we support our end customers.
Awesome. Okay, and yep, we'll break it down a little bit further. So I'm going to pivot to Scott, because Scott, you bring a unique perspective, both as a former Navy SEAL and now as a senior director in business development. So how does your operational experience shape how you evaluate and advocate for tech like TReX?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, yeah, coming from the special operations community, where we, one of our leading capabilities is access and placement in unique, denied areas or access denied areas. So a lot of our systems are low radar cross section, low probability to detect communications. And, during my operational experience, I saw that a lot of our testing and training, one of our mantras is you train like you fight. And our training definitely lacked realistic threat sensors to go against to really know how good we were in being stealthy. So coming from that background where, training realistically is a premium, and having the right tools to do it, I feel empowered now that I can really give back to my communities and the larger DoD with a high fidelity threat system like TReX and other systems that we have like DICE to really immerse our operators and our platforms up against what they really will be seeing when they try to penetrate these anti-access area denial areas. And just an example, with one of our low radar cross section boats, when I was overseeing training, I went up to the shore, and the guys were doing the best they could. They had a small Boston whaler on a trailer and just turned on its Furuno radar to see what we could see if we could pick up our boat coming into the coast. And it was very disappointing, right? Because what we really would be going against is some high-tech coastal defense radars, X-band, S-band radars that have height advantages looking down. And so, yeah, it just was not the level of realism that now I feel like we can provide.
Okay. And then also you're leading growth across Daniel's portfolio. So what excites you about the current demand for synthetic environments and signal emulation capabilities?
Yeah, I think the most exciting frontier now is getting into the live virtual constructive part of electronic warfare training, right? So across the services, our customers know that they cannot buy and man enough threat emulators like a TReX out on a range to really replicate a large scale network of sensors. So they got to bridge into a virtual emulation. And so our kind of sister business unit, Echo Ridge, has a great capability called DICE, Dynamic Spectrum Emulator. And so Daniel has now recently been put in charge of that team as well. So we're bridging together the live and the virtual channel emulator that DICE brings to be able to provide that threat replication at scale in the live and virtual environment.
That's really awesome. And, in this space, I think people are not always aware of all of the technologies that can interplay together in order to bring around operational effects. In the space that I'm in, we are doing a lot of cyber vulnerability testing. We do a lot of emulations in lab environments, but when we have those live fire testing, events, it's these types of capabilities that'll enable us to be better prepared to determine if our mitigations were as reasonable as we expected them to be, or if things were that we identified as potential vulnerabilities, if we could share mitigations with those PEOs to kind of, offset some of those things. So I think I see applicability across a wide range of spectrums, even in the space of, like I said, vulnerability assessment. So that's really cool to see that all of these tools can play together and provide different capabilities.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned cyber. We're doing a lot of cutting edge work in the margins on RF cyber inject. So how do you access these maybe hard to access systems that are firewalled or protected off net, but you can potentially find an access over the air?
Yep, that is the central question we ask a lot of times. So, it's very interesting how these kind of interplay together. All right. So I do want to get a little bit deeper into TReX. I think people have heard, high level, but can you just give us a quick overview of what TReX is and what it was designed to solve? Daniel, this question goes to you, but Scott, as always, please weigh in. But go ahead.
Sure. So TReX was originally it was a simple use case as a test bed against our electronic attack capabilities, because when we're evaluating electronic attacks, we're basically going against a specific near peer threat type of capabilities. Sometimes is readily available, but a lot of times it's not. So when we're trying to evaluate our electronic attacks, it's very difficult to understand the fidelity of the effects or the impact of the effects without having a very representative system to test that against. That's what TReX was. We were basically mimicking different systems on the radio frequency spectrum. And when the technology was able to validate our electronic attack capabilities, our customers understood that the TReX in itself has a lot of value outside of our electronic attack capabilities. We were able to also evaluate and assess other electronic attack capabilities. And when that use case grew into more advanced signals, we leveraged that, and now we're actually testing or leveraging the accurate fidelity of the signals that we're developing to train warfighters and other sophisticated weapon systems, because of the fact that these warfighters and very highly capable systems also need to be trained up against them, because you're not going to be seeing very capable adversarial systems in the US or even in our partner nations. So we're able to mimic those things pretty well. And I think that allows us to continuously grow almost like a symbiotic relationship with our electronic attack capability platform, because as they grow, we will grow, and as we grow, they have the ability to grow as well. And because earlier we talked about cyber, and because some of my background is also in cyber, Parsons as a company, we have a very sophisticated, very specific OCO platform, or offensive cyber operations platform, and leveraging that, we're also able to do defensive cyber as well. So when I was leading up a cyber capability development or cyber product line, one of the things that I kept mentioning to our customers is that if you're saying you can do defense, innately you should know how to do offense.
Absolutely.
Because we're offensive experts, we know how to defend as well. And it's in the same mantra with electronic attacks. We know how to develop the attacks, and we know how to mimic the opposite end of it. So that's what enables us to be a little bit different from the rest of the folks out there.
Absolutely. So to pull on that thread just a little bit more, what other things do you feel sets TReX apart from other signal emulators or training systems on the market? So anything in additional, you touched on, that, but also what else?
It's the key distinctions that we have is that, or one of it is that the fact that we're able to assess the attack itself, because we can see the effects of it. So that enables us to improve our emulation, our capability on the response side. And because of that, our signals that we're generating to look like whatever we want to look like is very, very accurate, which is very different from the industry, because of the fact that we're double dipping on how we develop both the TReX and our electronic attack capability. And we've heard many times, every single time we're going to events or as we're delivering capabilities, and about how high our fidelity is. And I think it's also representative of how good our capabilities in a lot of cases where we have competitors who happen to actually copy even our name as well. So I guess I'll take that as a form of flattery as well.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of step a little bit further, Scott. I want to know, what kind of fidelity and realism does TReX provide when emulating complex threat emitters?
Yeah, thank you for that. So, yeah, I think, just to dovetail on Daniel's comments, the big discriminator for the Parsons TReX is that it is truly an emulator. There's a lot of competitors out there that have simulators, and they're playing a recorded playback file. But the TReX signal has much more than just the physical layer. It mimics all 7 layers of the OSI stack. So there's protocols, framing, there's bit level data within the signal. So, and on top of that, like Daniel mentioned, we're a transceiver. So we're transmitting and we're receiving our own signal. So you have a live signal bridge basically being provided for entities to conduct electronic attack against, and then that's a TReX signal will respond. You'll see it degraded. You'll see a throughput drop off on the receive end if the transmission signal is being jammed. You'll see a bit error rate jump up if they're doing a precision electronic attack against it and flipping bits. You'll see that error rate increase. And a lot of customers have been seeking out that real-time feedback. Otherwise, they won't get any feedback until the plane lands. So if it's a compass call or some type of electronic warfare aircraft, they might get some communications passed to them. It might be spotty at best, but otherwise they'd have to wait until they land, put away the aircraft, and they go sit down and okay, let's try that again tomorrow instead of being able to reset in air. So that's one of the big things. And I think the last thing I want to highlight is the remote controllability. We've got a very flexible hardware solution that can connect via commercial cellular. We can use military line of sight radios. We could use Wi-Fi, Starlink, and allow multiple nodes to all be centrally command and controlled by a single laptop, or even, as I mentioned earlier, a smartphone device with a VPN connection. You can remotely reset, adjust, and run complex scripts from the comfort of your hotel room, as long as you're networked, or sitting side by side with the military operators in their TOC, Tactical Operations Center. And the other thing that we've proven is because we take an open architecture approach, we can easily interface with DoD network systems or command and control systems. So one of the big ones the Army uses is the Intelligence Electronic Warfare Tactical Proficiency Trainer, IEW TPT. And we came out to Vanguard 24 in Fort Huachuca last year with fully integrated TReX units into IEW TPT. So the Army and Threat Systems Management Office were able to, within 5 minutes, bring the TReX GUI feed up into their TPT COP, and now they were controlling TReX with their system.
That's awesome. One of the things that you touched on, and so I won't get too in depth, that particular customer set and that particular environment. Are there any other more common environments or scenarios that TReX is used in?
I mean, I would just say, labs and then over the air outdoor ranges are the two environments.
Okay.
Daniel mentioned the heat in the desert. There's also a lot of interest to put it in some colder areas as well, up in the high north, as the DoD calls it. So the hardware team under Daniel has done some great work innovating and ruggedizing the container, making sure that it's got the right environmental protection for both temperature variance and shock to operate and sustain within extreme environments.
Okay. Yeah, just trying to give our listeners a depiction of, things that are in the realm of possibility. So that's a very good one, knowing that it's ruggedized. But then there's other operational spaces that it's a great fit for as well on the commercial side. So just kind of comparing and contrasting to give people ideas.
Yeah. I guess I'll add also that, it can be fixed. You can set it up on the ground and run it off a generator or shore power, or you can put it in a vehicle and run it off the alternator within the vehicle. And we're working on shrinking down the form factor to put it on small UAS systems as well.
Yeah, just one added note, final note about flexibility of the system. We're able to make modifications on the fly, pretty much, where we can change parameters, change characteristics of the signal. And there's somewhat of a funny story where I got a very, very official, scary looking letter from a very fancy law firm in DC, where it was representing a very large corporation telling me to cease and desist because we were encroaching in their frequency range, which was actually directed by the DoD from my standpoint. So I actually just
ignored it.
pass that letter along straight to the DoD. But
Yeah.
ultimately, we were able to just change some of the parameters and move the frequency over very, very quickly, literally on the laptop within 10 seconds. So
Wow.
that showcases our ability to work around limitations, because the radio frequency range obviously is invisible, but it's very, very congested. So as we're doing testing over the air, as we're doing training over the air, we're able to adjust as needed. And if there's a specific need, we can make those changes very, very specifically and very much on the fly.
Yeah. And that's speaks to me for like competitive edge, right? That you're not requiring a new deployment or some new like configuration changes that have to go through a full life cycle of, testing. You can adjust things in real time and then see how the operational scenario responds. So that speaks volumes, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
All right. So, can someone walk us through how a mission planner might use TReX to simulate and refine a ConOps? So, just more tactical, down in the weeds of like, what are the steps that are involved there?
Yeah, I'll start with that, and Dan can jump in. But yeah, typically our mission planning audience are electronic warfare and simulation specialists within the services. Uh, and so they will have a certain scenario, they're, looking at our pacing threat, China, or looking at the Russian systems, these priority threats that we want to train to defeat or maneuver within. And so you have a set frequency range within our TReX inventory. So we have a one TReX 6 that tops out at 6 gigahertz. We have another one that goes up to 18 gigahertz. And we have a couple of different amplifiers that give you increased power if you want to focus on radar signals. So you've got to figure out which threat systems that you want to train against, that you want, what your red team wants to look like. Identify, then Parsons will put together the right TReX software-defined radio, amplifier, and antenna, configuration to give you those signals. And then you need to figure out how dense you want that environment. What's the size of your training unit? Is it a squad, a platoon? Is it a battalion?
Mhm.
The numbers of TReX units go up pretty quickly. But I would say for our battalion, you want somewhere in the order of 8 to 10 TReX units, and then a variety of the 6, 18, and the 200-watt amps and the 20-watt amps. And you can make a realistic congested threat environment to then maneuver against. And so then it comes down to placement. What kind of enemy force do you want to replicate? Is it a command and control unit with a couple of recon elements? Is it some UAS, ISR assets? And so yeah, we work with the customer on what their training scenario is to get them the right equipment. And then the last thing is, how are we going to network and power them out on the range? And yeah, at that point, once all those are in place, Daniel's team can pre-build out scripts. A script is basically the music sheet, right, of all the different radios, frequencies between tactical comms to data links to radar systems. And we can, a TReX can simultaneously play several of these signals across its 160 megahertz of instantaneous bandwidth. So you can put 4 to 5 radar signals out of one, or maybe even like 10 tactical radio signals out of one TReX unit. Now think about multiple units doing that in harmony.
So one of the things that I noticed as you were walking through the steps is just the collaborative nature of how we are building out these scenarios with the stakeholder, right? Being able to be, the voice behind what the recommendations are, maybe, flexibility and how they're going to adapt their mission planning scenario. And so I love that about, every step of the way it was this team will work with that planner to understand their training session. Then we'll work through what it looks like to build out that scenario and then network it all the way down like end to end. It's not just a capability we're delivering. It's, the subject matter expertise to get you the right scenario so that you can get to the right outcome.
Yeah. And we may not have the signal in our library that they want, but we can go out and get it, right? They can push it to us. We can go back to the Intel community, request it. And then, just last year, I was amazed how quickly just one TReX engineer, took, I want to say 6 signals that were pushed to us, mailed to us on a thumb drive in a different format that we hadn't dealt with before. And Mohammed, our engineer, had them reformatted into TReX language, for lack of a better term, within a couple hours of that same day.
Yeah.
And he had those signals ready and tested and showed me a snapshot on the spectrum analyzer that they were coming through clean.
That's amazing. And yet another instance of being able to respond within, hours of a need for that mission planner so that they have exactly what they need for their operational environment scenario. So I think that's really cool. Again, I like to point that out for our listeners because, it's not normally hours when we have to make adjustments or minutes, right? As the case that Daniel gave before, it could be days, it could be weeks for other similar capabilities that are, outside of TReX. So pointing that out.
Yeah, and another example of that in terms of how quickly we respond, and also our close relationships with our customers is an example where my team and I were sitting at a restaurant close to a base in Florida, talking about how we can address a specific problems that was brought to us by the fighter jet community, and within from that moment, and then us coming up with a brand new hardware stack with appropriate software embedded within the hardware, it took about 8 weeks, which in a hardware world is unheard of. And I think we did actually have conversations with other partners and competitive mates in the industry, and typically those types of prototypes or proofs of concepts takes months or years to develop. So I think because of the fact that we do have a very close relationship with our customers, where they give us direct feedback, and it's not that they're asking us to build something specific. They're telling us a problem set, and we have the flexibility, and we have a lot of very creative and hardworking engineers that can come up with solutions very quickly to deliver a very form-fitted and specific technology that works best for our customers. I think that obviously that comes with our competitive edge, but also it enables us to grow faster, and then from a technology perspective, and also the development of our engineers as well.
And so, I mean, that's amazing feedback that you're hearing in real time, right? From the flexibility standpoint. What other type of feedback are you hearing from users, whether it's program offices or field operators, that reinforces the value of TReX?
Because of the fact that we talk at a decision maker level, and then all the way down to the users, the operators that are carrying these systems, utilizing it on a day-to-day basis, we hear from top, bottom, and bottom up. So that again feeds back into our technical roadmap and how we develop new capabilities, or how we fix the problems that we see that we may not readily understand until these things are fielded and used by operators. And because of the fact that I've got people on my phone who call me in the middle of the night because they're at a different time zone, or folks who are decision makers that are asking questions about how to approach a solution, all the way from how things are being proposed out at a proposal level, or from a requirements level to funding level. We get asked these types of questions, but that enables us to be better on our own to support our customers with the best technology. But I think it's a very good symbiotic relationship that we've established over the years, because of the fact that we do have a very good trust and an open relationship with our customers.
Right. Okay. So I want to pivot slightly, because, Scott, we talked earlier about how your experience, right, it it helped kind of operationalize some of these scenarios, but I want to understand the opposite side of that question, right? How does TReX enhance training for warfighters and decision makers?
Yeah. So again, it's the fact that uh, visiting. I guess I'll give an example of visiting out with the 25th Infantry Division out at Schofield Barracks in Oahu, when we provided, these uh, simulation of threat signals, emulated signals as well. And I talked to the commander. He's like, "This is fantastic." He's like, "My guys have been training against their own SYNCARS radios." He's like, "So my EW guys really know well what we look like in the RF spectrum, but now we're finally taking a look at what the adversary looks like, so we can, sense, identify, locate, and then decide." Right, that OODA loop is now being applied in a realistic fashion. So that's the big difference that TReX provides for the warfighters. And again, a low cost, very flexible software defined capability that, if you got a different set of signals you want to train against, let's see them, and we'll get them in there, or tell me where I can find those, and we'll make sure that they're accurate, and the amplifier and antenna configuration gives it the right power output, and it's filtered well. We make sure that our signals are clean and don't have spurious signals or harmonics into them, so that the end user, the training audience, really gets immersed in a realistic threat environment.
Okay. So we talked about, going out and being able to get signals and make, TReX adaptable for signals that weren't already available in the system, and how quickly we can kind of pivot those changes into TReX. But outside of that, how customizable is the training experience? For example, can trainers easily modify and reuse signals of interest on their own?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's one of the key benefits of how the TReX system evolved over the years. Originally, it was a very engineer, digital signal processing expert type of system because it was an internal test kit. But now we're able to give the users the ability in a very simplified way to modify parameters so that they can change the pulse with the frequency, the bandwidth, without pinging back to our engineering team. So as long as they have basic user understanding of how TReX works and how things work in the RF space, it's a very, very simple operation. And going back to what Scott mentioned about remote controllability, having the ability to make these changes on the fly from a remote location, because sometimes these systems are many, many miles apart from the control center, and also from each other. So if you're controlling multiple TReX systems, the last thing you want to do is stop whatever you're doing, get on a Humvee, drive an hour, make one change, and come back. Come to find out that something else went wrong. But because of the fact that we can control these systems remotely on our own network and also integrated into existing government platforms, we're able to give that flexibility to the operators.
Absolutely. That sounds like, the remote capability sounds like a game changer, especially if you're rapidly evolving the scenarios that you're trying to run through. So that's awesome. All right. So, future of EW and SIGINT. I want to know, given how fast signal environments are evolving, how does TReX stay adaptable to new threats and technologies?
So from my perspective, because of the fact that our DNA is rooted in electronic attack, and then also because of the fact that we work so closely with our customers, we are innately ahead of the game in how we develop our signals and how we evolve our capability. And there are very interesting things that are coming out, just even in the commercial industry with machine learning and how we can enable human operators with AI/ML. Those are the kind of things that we are constantly looking at to integrate with our existing capabilities and how we evolve from a signal perspective, and also how to empower our operators in the most effective manner. So we're not just focused on one specific thing, but we look at everything and from a holistic perspective. And because of the fact that we have direct access to our customers, and for better or worse, they can call me at any time of the day at night, as well as Scott. We'll get very candid, positive or negative, or areas of improvement feedbacks very, very quickly. So I think that helps us evolve faster and then evolve appropriately, because we don't want to get down to the wrong rabbit hole 6 months or a year ahead, and then come to find that it wasn't really that important. So I think that ability to pivot, move quickly, and then respond to direct feedback it has enabled us to evolve in an appropriate way, and I think that will continue to support us going forward as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned a few things already, so I don't want you to have to repeat, but what's next for TReX? Are there any other upcoming enhancements or new capabilities that you're excited about?
So without getting too much into the details, we're operating in various domains, on land, in air, in space, but we're also diving into, we've got systems that are on water now, and then also working with different capabilities that are complementary to the TReX as well. Scott earlier mentioned about a virtualized environment. So TReX is a over-the-air emulation of signals, but if our partners and warfighters are training or in a very elaborate manner, they also need things that may not be readily available in open space. So we're overlaying things in the virtual environment as well. And then I mentioned about AI/ML. That's definitely the next big thing that's coming for us in the very near future. A lot of exciting things that are coming as well, from a software perspective, from a how do we enable or empower operators through AI/ML. And then there are a lot more hardware centric things that are coming out as well, because small form factor, low cost is always an important thing for us to focus on. And how we ruggedize and weatherize our systems is also huge. And then how to optimize how we leverage existing technologies through improved RF front ends. I think those are always the things that we try to focus on.
So it sounds like some pretty exciting times coming up, in the TReX environment, but just, in this area as a whole. I want to ask both of you, for someone who's listening today, who might want to work with this type of technology, what skills or backgrounds do you think would make a good fit? And also, what advice would you give to these professionals who are trying to enter this space and develop innovative solutions like this? So it's a broad question. Just what would you say to those people who are listening here today? And I want both of you guys to respond. Scott, we'll start with you, and then we'll come to you, Daniel.
Yeah, I'd say, being a military guy, I would love to find a former, growler pilot, someone who has been immersed in electronic warfare at the tactical, operational, strategic level. In my experience as a SEAL, it was a supporting element. It was kind of, that magic stuff that happened in support of our missions. I was never really steeped in it. It was just a component of our planning. Someone who's coming out of any service, it doesn't have to be a pilot, even the Army Prophet program, or someone who's been working in the EW. It'd be great to have that added expertise, a part of our team. But then, really, as Daniel mentioned, someone who just is a problem solver, takes initiative, Point them in a direction, him or her in a direction, and they're eager to go out and figure it out. Come back when you need guidance. That type of person, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Scott about, if there are people with military backgrounds that have exposure to EW, that's definitely a huge added bonus. The other things that I really hyper focus on, especially from younger or newer engineers who are getting their feet wet in the industry, is really, just like Scott said, problem solving, but really not being afraid to learn new things, because it is a very there's a pretty steep learning curve in this space, whether it's digital signal processing, software development. Working within the DoD and IC is very different from the commercial world, so it can be kind of daunting for newer engineers and newer team members. But really, not being afraid to dive into the deep end, tackling really 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 hard questions. And there's a common saying about work smart, not harder. For us, it's actually both. You have to be smart. That doesn't really distinguish anybody here, be it by being smart or just working hard. You have to do both. And then, being a very good professional about how do we collaborate together, learn together, and then come up with really interesting ideas. Because at least within my team, we have a very high tolerance for risk and failing fast. So if you're comfortable in chaos, if you're comfortable, sometimes blowing up an amplifier, which has happened many times,
Right.
It's okay. As long as you learn from it, as long as you can improve from it, as long as you enable others to go faster and learn in a comprehensive manner, I think that's a good thing. And I didn't grow up in an EW environment, but I had to learn very fast. But if you have the mentality, I think you're already set up for success. So those are the types of folks I would encourage to get into this market and this industry. And yeah, there's job openings in my team, so yeah, come on and apply.
All right. So what we're going to make sure we have is the LinkedIn. If you guys are pushing things across LinkedIn, we'll make sure that we include that in the YouTube description for this episode. We can't do that for Spotify, but we'll point them in the right direction for folks who are excited about this conversation and excited about what you guys are delivering. So, final question here. And I appreciate the amount of time that you guys have sat down with me today, and I've been able to pick your brain. But I do want to know what's next for each of you in this exciting portfolio. So I'll start with you, Daniel, and then we'll go to Scott.
So I think those in the industry may know that the world of EW is evolving very, very fast. And there are, earlier I mentioned about AI/ML, but there's a lot more that goes into it. And there's a lot of problem sets that are emerging right now that needs to be solved immediately. So we're tackling new things. We're not being stagnant into how we try to improve on a minimal basis. There's brand new technologies, brand new mission sets, brand new problem sets that we're tackling. So we're looking into areas that we haven't done before. We're looking into resources or technologies or partners that we haven't worked with before. So at least from my standpoint, I'm very excited about the near and long-term future because of the fact that there's so many new challenges, so many new problems, and so many new things to learn. So the technology will grow with it. I think our team will grow with it, which in turn will help our government partners. So I'm very excited about how we're going to be evolving going forward.
Love that. All right, Scott, what about you? What are you most excited about coming up for you?
Yeah, so a lot of opportunities to show off TReX at some industry days as well as exercises. So in the near term, we'll be down at SOCOM's Soft Week, May 5th through 8th. So if you're in the Tampa area, come by the Convention Center, booth 940. I'll have TReX on display along with a lot of other Parsons technologies. And then later in May, potentially have a TReX involved in a OUSD R&E event called Lexington Green. We'll be having a TReX unit integrated with TSMO's command and control architecture, putting out threat signals. And then another big event in June called CyberQuest 25, and that's in support of the Army Cyber Battle Lab down at Fort Eisenhower in Augusta, Georgia. We'll have a TReX down there for 2 weeks. Again, 2 TReX and one of our ER310 handheld software-defined radios providing threat signals for the Army's 11th Cyber to train against. So yeah, some exciting events coming up involving some travel for the team. And then I think the last thing that I'm excited about is applications for TReX for Space Force. They're very interested in using our threat signals for training against their assets up in orbit. So we'll see how that plays out in the future.
Awesome. I love that. That is a very busy engagement schedule that you have right now. And I hope that when we are able to drop this episode, people are able to see each place that they can kind of find you and pick your brain, because I think it's awesome that you'll be available at a lot of these different events to talk to people and kind of answer questions about the capabilities and demonstrate some of the amazing things that we can do. So again, I appreciate you guys for joining us today. We're at the point now where I'm going to let Scott and Daniel get back to their very busy schedules, I'm sure. But I wanted to take a moment just to wrap up with the audience and kind of talk directly to our viewers for a second. You've heard a lot of different opportunities in this space coming from Daniel and Scott. They also said they're actually actively hiring. So if you're passionate about solving complex challenges and working on mission-driven projects and staying ahead of cutting-edge technology, you should always look into joining Parsons. If you're looking for a mission-driven career where innovation, collaboration, and impact are at the forefront, Parsons is the place for you. So check out www.parsons.com/careers to explore opportunities in cybersecurity, AI, machine learning, cloud, defense, biodefense, electronic spectrum, all of those areas, we have the full gamut of opportunities. Also, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and let us know what you want to learn more about in our next episode. So that's a wrap for today's journey. Mission accomplished, but the journey never actually ends. Have a good one.